The biggest determinant of success in small business is time. It's the amount
Very good point.
we do all this stuff. We try very hard to be able to speed things up, make them, optimize them, do all of that. The
Yeah.
main thing is sticking it out.
Yeah,
And
I 100% agree, and that goes with anything. It goes with employees as well as, entrepreneurs. You
yeah,
need time to really understand what you're doing, to understand the, subtleties of what you're doing, to learn how to do them better, work out what's meshing with you and what's not.
yeah.
You need time. You
But
can't do things
to build a
overnight.
reputation,
Yep,
to build a
branding,
brand.
everything. Welcome to Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast, where we tackle all sorts of great topics in the areas of recruitment, job searching, mindset, technology, marketing, culture, and lots more. It's amazing what you'll pick up. Thanks for joining me. Welcome back, everyone. It's episode 74 of Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast. I'm Darren Saul, your host. The topic for today, from hustle to high gear, how founders break through the plateau and scale, with the fantastic Cam Elliott, who's been on the show many times before. How you doing, Cam?
I'm very well. It's great to be back, Daz. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure to have you. You always bring so much value and,
Well, I
and
do try.
insights.
Thank you. Thank you. I always just enjoy it because I feel like we're just having a chat as if we were down at the pub. So,
Can't go wrong with that.
yeah.
But mate, I thought I'd give everybody a bit of an intro into you for those who haven't seen your previous episodes. So today's guest knows how to grow revenue fast, sustainably, and without the fluff. He's spent 20 plus years leading high performance sales teams across media, tech, and professional services. As country director for GoodHabitz Australia, he launched the brand, built a national footprint, and drove strong revenue growth in a tough market. Before that, he founded Elevate Corporate Training, later acquired, delivering practical, results-driven programs across the country. And now, through the growth engine, he helps businesses fix broken pipelines, sharpen forecasts, and implement tools that actually get used. His work is hands-on, outcome-focused, and deeply operational. He's not a consultant in a suit. He's a partner obsessed with real progress. Get ready for a conversation packed with straight talk, smart systems, and strategies that drive results. So thank you, mate. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
No worries. Thanks for the lovely intro.
My pleasure.
Yep. Suits for weddings and funerals.
Oh,
So,
mate, I think I own one suit, a black suit, and I hardly ever wear it. And I don't think I own a tie anymore. They're all gone.
yeah. It's
Remember
yeah,
those
but
days?
they'll probably come back. You know,
Maybe one day.
these things all move in cycles. So, mm,
Funny how we used to all dress up and they go to every meeting in a suit and tie,
yeah.
really big
It's,
compendium. How
You
those changes, days have
for
changed.
me, it's almost getting to the point where I miss it a little bit, you know? I feel like now when I do dress up for something, if I'm going to a big client meeting or maybe if it's even out for a nice dinner or something, like I live in Byron, so the uniform is board shorts and a singlet.
Yeah,
And,
maybe a linen shirt if you like it.
yeah, there are a few linen shirts, you're not wrong there. So, I'm down in Melbourne at the Chili at the moment we're going out to a bit of a fancy restaurant tonight, so I'm looking forward to putting on a shirt.
Well done.
Yeah, not linen, but
Absolutely. It's a bit chilly around in Melbourne, I'm
it
sure.
is. It's freezing today.
Well, mate, let's get into your journey because you've done so many different things. I'd love you to tell us how you ended up where you are now and why you're so passionate about what you're doing right now.
This is really the culmination of everything that I've done has led me to this. I think maybe I've actually just run out of options of other things to do now, but I do really feel like the role that I'm playing in business now is the one that everything else has led me towards. And so, I obviously started out my career in sales. I worked at Channel 7. I was a sales director for a media company for nearly 10 years. I built my own training business. I sold that. Yeah, as you said, I launched the Good Habits into the Australian market, the SaaS company, and scaled that for a couple of years. And then I've gone out on my own again. And so when I was thinking about like what I wanted to do, and I really thought hard about this because I've definitely changed the hats that I wear a few times. I'm 45, 46 years old now, and I feel like I'm in the kind of prime part of my career, and I didn't wanna just jump into my next move, and so I took a little bit of time to step back and think about what I really wanted to do, and I mean, I really stood back, like, I nearly bought a pizza
Oh,
restaurant.
wow.
I I looked into starting a business that, was in tourism.
Oh,
I really considered a broad scope, and then somebody contacted me and said that they needed some help with their business and scaling their business. And I went in and did some work in house for them just for a few weeks and put together a framework that was a model that was essentially from the way that I'd scaled other businesses. And
nice.
it had such a big impact. And I really loved it. And I was like, I don't want to own a pizza restaurant. That sounds really hard.
Oh, yes, definitely.
The romance of it got me at the start, but the reality of it, I think, is, and hats off to anyone that runs a
Yeah,
successful pizza restaurant. I realized that the mix of the strengths that I'd accumulated over the years in terms of really understanding the psychology of why people buy things, understanding the systems and the processes that are required in order to be able to repeat growth. So not just to be able to do it once, but to be able to continue to do it. And all of those insights from the various businesses that I'd been involved in scaling that I kind of assumed were like general knowledge, but it's only when you sit down and you realize, oh, actually, no, that's a lifetime of accumulated knowledge.
absolutely.
And so it fell at that crossroads of I really loved it and there was a lot of value coming in. That's really what kind of led me to move down that path. And so really enjoying it so far. And
Awesome.
I get to have a lot of great conversations with a lot of great business people. I typically work with people who are already a few years into their business.
Yep.
What happens is, when you first start a business, this
Yeah, it's
and
like
you've
swimming
got
it's like
you
drinking from a fire hydrant.
that's right, and you're just running as hard at it as you
Yeah,
can, just so focused on growth because you need to, right? You need a customer, you need your first one, you need your first 10,
yeah.
and you'll climb over dead bodies to get to them. So, but then what happens is we get lost in running the business, we've got clients, we've got all customers, we've got the headaches with the website, we've got
Marketing, we got operations,
all that sort of stuff. So
accounting. Oh my god, yeah.
that's it. Typically, I find that that is the moment where a business will either do something become amazing
Mm,
or either maintain, and maybe, be a kind of business that provides a salary
yep,
to an owner,
yep.
or worst case scenario, they go under, which, as we know, most small businesses do. I want that really amazing one. And one of the things that I've identified about most businesses that we know because they've become a household name is because the owner of that business was obsessed with growth
Yeah, interesting.
in almost every case. So,
Interesting. No, no, that's
like, I'm
fascinating.
going off on tangents already, but you know what I'm like.
No, I love that, and it's kind of in line with what I wanted to ask you because where do you find the sweet spot of when that scaling needs to happen? Is it like generally 2 to 3 years in, or is it just depends on the business?
Yeah, it depends on the business. You could sort of rule of thumb it that it takes a minimum 12 months
Yep.
to figure out enough to then add the petrol to the engine. So, and the things that we really need to figure out, who is the person that will benefit the most from my solution, from my offering, from my product, from my service, whatever it is. So who is the person that will benefit the most? What's the exact problem that I actually solve for them?
Nice. Yep.
What's the message that I need to be able to say in order to be able to connect with those people?
Love it.
And the last one is, what's the offering that they're most likely to buy?
So true.
So without having done maybe 12 months worth of pain, you know,
Mm,
testing, trying this, trying that. And there are ways to do that faster. And,
yeah,
you know, so for some businesses, it might take them 3 years to get there. For some businesses, maybe it's less than 12 months. But without having some data there, some gut feel, some experience, it's very hard to nail those 4 things.
yeah,
So I like coming in at that stage. You know, I do work with startups who've just
yeah.
started out, and it's got their own challenges and uniqueness as well. They're both good as well. Like, from an enjoyment point of view, like, I love working with companies that have just started. The energy's amazing.
It's
Uh,
challenging. You've got so
yeah,
much to
there's
grow.
problems. They're stressed, but they're generally throwing themselves into it. There's benefits for both sides, but I feel where I can add the most value is at that point in time. And a lot of companies don't even know that they're at that point in time because they're getting so bogged down in the running the day to day part of the business.
That's right. And it's so interesting that you say that because I think that's so important. Like having those 4 things are important, but they've got to be in the right combination. So many businesses, myself included in the past and side hustles and stuff, you could have the best offer, but the wrong target market or the great target market with the best communication, best message, wrong offer. So you've got to have the whole thing perfectly in sync.
Yeah, 100%. The good thing is that it's easier now to test that than it ever has been before.
Right. Let's explore that a bit more. What are some quick hacks to test that?
Yeah. Well, I think probably the easiest way to be able to see what resonates is by seeing how people engage with it.
Yeah.
And so we've got multiple ways that we can do that. You know, we've got it from things like founder-led content on social media.
Yeah.
So if we have an idea of who that ICP is, we can reach out to them. We can contact lots of people. We've got, you know, you can reach out and connect with people on LinkedIn, or you can do posts on your LinkedIn, but also on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and start to test some of that messaging. It does, a lot of this depends on what you're selling as well. Obviously, you know, if it's a low value consumer product that, or low cost, I should say, consumer product that, and you're going to be testing it with data from e-commerce sales, then, you know, you can find out information quite easily. Most of the work I do is in the B2B space. I do a lot of work with professional services, a fair bit in kind of manufacturing as well. I do work with some clothing type companies that do wholesaling, that type of thing as well. But so they're mostly in that kind of B2B space. So you've got those kind of free channels to be able to do that. But then you've also got all the paid channels as well. So if you're spending $2,000 or $3,000 a month on ads,
Mhm.
you've got a big enough data set to be able to figure out what's working and what's not working.
Right.
And I find there's no motivator like throwing
Oh
$3,000
yeah.
hole to make
Oh
sure that
yeah.
you're getting it right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we've got that. Then we've got split testing or A/B testing that can be done on your own website. So having different landing pages, different messaging, different ad copy, different ways of adding value. So are we, you know, if we're running webinars, or if you're doing a podcast, you know, which podcast episodes are getting
Yeah.
the biggest number of listens, you know? And so not even our own content now, you know, we can actually start to do this with other people's content as
That's
well
right.
and see what people are looking at. So
And to
yeah,
bring the good old AI into the mix, I'm sure you can even use tools there to actually fast track all those metrics and all that
yeah,
insight.
100%.
And now I'd love to get an insight from you as to what other ways that business owners, when they reach that stage, can start thinking like strategists and not operators or technicians, because that's the hardest shift to
Mm.
make.
I think that even before we talk about, I like to talk about like why it
Yeah,
happens,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
because I
Let's
think
do it.
getting an understanding of that helps founders to
Big time.
realize that they're doing it and why they're doing it, and identify that they are doing it.
Yeah. And you're right.
So
Like a lot of people think they're running a business, but they're actually just working in the business and that's their business.
yeah, 100%. So Why we do it, so if you think about, like, the makeup of most founders, they tend to be, let's call them entrepreneurs.
Yep,
We tend to be very self-sufficient, pretty good at getting things done.
yep.
Uh,
Control freaks.
we're control freaks. We're also easily distracted a lot of the
Yep,
time. We like variety. We like
yep,
the next shiny thing. Obviously, I am generalizing, but they're pretty common traits
for
across
sure.
most founders. And so the problems that they then have are things like being able to let go,
Mhm.
being able to delegate or trust other people to do work as well as what they are going to, often perfectionists as well.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
which we think of as a good trait, but it really isn't.
It's not.
It just does not help us. So a lot of those factors come together and mean that founders find themselves in a business because and often they're right. Like if we think about something like a customer complaint, right?
Yeah,
If you've got a customer and that customer is unhappy, you probably, as the founder, you probably are the best person to deal with it.
mm,
Even if you've got somebody else in your business that does it better,
yeah,
just because you're the founder and they've got a complaint, they're like, "Oh, at least the founder's talking to me." So you're already coming into the situation
true.
above the person. The problem is that if we let that be the excuse, then we'll never get past it.
That's
And
right.
so there has to be an opportunity to step back and realize, okay, if I want to be able to achieve this, if I want to be able to help as many people with my solution as possible, then there needs to be systems in place that will allow my team to be able to do this more effectively or to be able to automate it or to be able to use a tool to be able to do it. So it's, obviously there's a lot more options now that aren't necessarily just hiring more people as well.
Definitely. Yep, absolutely.
Getting better at all of that is what's going to allow the headspace, the capacity, and the motivation to really focus on those activities that are required for growth.
Yeah. And the hardest thing is letting go. Like I'm a perfect example. I'm a control freak, I'm a perfectionist, and I always think I can do it better than everybody else. But sometimes 80, 90% is good enough when you want to scale, when you've got other things to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
You have
There
to
is
just live with
also
it.
a very slight possibility that maybe someone does it better than us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's true. That is very true. Yep,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. You never know. They might actually go, wow, I never thought of doing it that way.
Wow,
That
yeah.
looks better than the way I do it. Absolutely. Yep, I agree.
Yeah,
So it's interesting.
we're weird, we are humans, hey?
We are indeed. And so then, being that that's the case, and we've got to the point where we understand that, what are some of the ways that we can then take the next step to make sure we maintain that and we don't fall back into our normal trap of trying to do everything ourselves?
The first thing that we need to do is get really clear on what we want to achieve. If you don't have a plan that's written down, that's based on
Yeah.
the number of customers that you want, the amount of revenue that you want to generate, the amount of profit that you're hoping
Yep.
to achieve at least a midterm level, 3 years type plan, then you are just going to be swimming aimlessly.
Yep.
So we start with that. We start with where are we trying to get to, and then we can work back from there. We can, if I'm working with a new client at the moment. I just onboarded them yesterday. She has a goal that she's trying to achieve. We figured out what that goal is, and then we've worked backwards to figure out, okay, well, it's a SaaS product, so typical kind of buying cycle, which is that we get attention. We find the people who are the right ICP for them to be able to get value out of this particular solution. We then need to get them onto a discovery call,
Yep.
then want to do a demo. We then send a proposal, and then we close a deal. I wish it was actually that easy, but that yeah, you
Yeah.
know what I mean. So, but they're the steps, and so what we're able to do is to reverse engineer all of that. We start with what's your average customer value.
Yep.
We then figure out if that's the average customer value, how many sales do we need? I like to ramp things as well because often, generally that's how it's going to work. Is we're not going to get to the run rate that we require in month one. We need to ramp up to that. So I put the ramp in there, and then we work backwards. Well, that if it's this many sales at this average customer value, we either increase the customer value or we stick with that one, and then we figure out how many proposals do I need to do? Because I know that 1 in 3 of the proposals I send close. I know that,
Yeah.
out of every demo I do, 80% of them get to the proposal stage, and I know out of every disco that 80% of them get to the, demo stage. So we work backwards from all of that, and then we figure out, okay, well, this is the kind of activity levels that we need. So we've got the goal. We've then got how do we reverse engineer the amount of appointments and proposals, et cetera, that we need? And then it becomes about, okay, have we got the right ICP? Have we got the right messaging? And is the
Yep.
offer right? And we can start tweaking all of those things to be able to improve conversion rates. So sounds a little bit boring. I actually just love it. Like I love figuring out what's the path to be able to get there. And most of the customers that I've got in my business love the fact that all of a sudden they've got some structure. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. So true.
it's not just about the revenue, it's actually about them and their life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I was doing some work with got a new ads management team for
Oh,
my business,
nice. Great.
and they were talking about my messaging, and they were like, "Oh, we should be talking about how we give them back time and give them back their life and that sort of thing." I was like, "I actually don't think that's what I do." I I do think I give them structure and I help them feel better about what
Yes.
they're doing and that they're doing the right thing.
Yep.
But most of the people I work with, they don't work less because I'm working with them.
Yeah.
They just
You
work
just give
better.
them a direction. You're giving,
Yeah.
you're telling them where they should be aiming.
That's right, and the structure that's there so that they feel like they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I still do it myself where I have days and I'm like, "I don't know what I achieved today. I worked from the moment I got up until the moment I went to bed, but I don't know what I achieved."
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why, I try and put these structures in place so that you're really seeing the progress that you're making
Yeah,
and
so true. And I used to be the same. I'm getting better, much, much better these days. I'm not perfect, but I
Mm,
used to be one of those guys that was more intuitive, go with my gut. Things seems to be all right. I've got these amount of clients. I'm busy,
yeah.
but I've really started to understand and appreciate numbers and metrics and those goals in terms of how to focus and build my week according to certain metrics.
How do you do it, Daz? Have you got do you have a weekly plan? Have you got a particular rhythm that you keep to? What do you
Yeah, so I've become over the last so many years, I've become way more structured in how I work, for example.
Yeah,
So I've really and I was listening to a podcast all about this morning, Alex
yeah,
Hormozi's podcast, and
yeah,
he was
yeah,
saying something, and I said, "Wow, I do exactly that." So
mm,
I get up in the morning at like 5 a.m.,
yeah,
and from 5 to 9
me too. Yeah,
is my absolute working on the business in a way,
mm,
marketing, doing all the things I need to do, taking a bit of time out as well because it's quiet and calm.
yeah,
So that's my creative time and my high energy time,
yeah,
super focused time.
yeah,
And then I'll have blocks within the day where, all right, my afternoon seems to be, I'm in the right headspace to make all my calls. So I'll block
mm,
them in for the end of the day. And during
mhm,
the day, I might organize all my interviews. So I'm
mm,
starting to get much more rigid with my time
yeah,
and also understanding where I can say no. No, I'm not going to do that meeting, or
yeah,
that's just going to be an email or an SMS. I'm going to not going to waste half an hour on the phone. So I
yeah,
think I'm learning how to be really structured and ruthless with time is one of
mm.
them.
And because you've been at it for a while,
Mm.
you know the answers to most of those
Yes.
things.
Yeah,
So going back to the question before, it's if you didn't know what to say no to,
that's
and
right. That's right.
until you've gone through the pain of of
Of
saying yes to it
going down the
times.
track, with all these
Yeah.
meetings that went nowhere and all these
Mm,
opportunities that I entertained that I thought, oh, maybe, and then absolutely went nowhere, wasted all my time. So
yeah,
just with hindsight and with experience, you start to learn
yeah,
together with your gut to a degree, you start to learn what to say yes and what to say no to,
yeah, yeah.
which is the
It
tough
sounds
part.
like you've found the rhythm that works for you as well. And that's a big part of it for
Yeah,
most,
which is important.
even just from a circadian rhythm point of view.
Yeah,
You know that between 5 and 9, that's when you're freshest and you're
yeah,
really creative, and I'm the same. I
yeah,
do my best work then.
me too.
I've got some staff that are much further west on the world map than I am, and
Yeah,
so I have late meetings with them, and I know that I don't function as well in those
yeah, yep,
meetings.
definitely. Because you're tired, it's the end of the day, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And also with recruitment, from a recruitment point of view, for all the recruiters listening,
Mm,
you all know that it's all about the metrics of working backwards. How many
Yeah.
candidates do I need to interview every week? How many client interviews do I need to set every week? How many reference check? Like all those metrics
Yeah.
give you the ultimate goal in the
Yeah.
end. Yeah, so you got to
Yeah,
work
well, you
backwards.
know that I've done a lot of work with recruiters in the past, both from a business development point of view and from a capability point of view. I'm now
Yeah.
working with a couple of recruitment companies from
Oh,
a
great.
strategic point of view.
Okay.
And you're right. I like to talk about the three levers of success that you have in recruitment, which is effort, and that's essentially like exactly what you just spoke about. Like how many
Activity, the volume of activity.
the volume of activity, how many outreach calls I do, how many client calls I do, how many candidates I reach out to. That is volume, and you look at any recruitment floor, and if you look at the top three recruiters, there's probably at least two of them are the hardest working recruiters
Yep.
in the business. There are some that aren't. But anyway, that's the first lever. You've got the volume, the how hard you work, and also how focused you are when you do that work
Yep.
as well. So how switched on you are. But then there's strategy.
Nice.
The second is strategy and being able to make sure that you're speaking to the right people, that you're doing it at the right time, that
Yeah.
you're doing it at the right time for you, like we were just speaking
Yep.
about. Like, am I putting my best energy into the right part of the day? Making sure that you've got your offer right, that your process of how you bring people together, whatever it is, right? So we've got strategy, and a lot of people just don't focus on that part of it. They just go through the motions of
Yep.
doing what they've always done. And so really important to be able to focus on that. And then the third lever that you've got to be able to improve is capability. If I bring it down to the kind of most crass version, which is, how many phone calls can I make is the volume. Am I calling the right people is the strategy part of it. And then the capability part is what am I saying to them when
Yeah.
I'm on the phone? And so how well do I understand how to build connection with people? How well do I build trust with people? How good am I at creating influence?
Yeah. Have
Uh,
I role played? Have I scripted? Have I practiced rebuttaling any other negative comments, etc., etc.?
yeah.
Yeah.
But most of us, if we want to be successful, we go to the first lever and we go, okay, I got to work harder.
Work harder.
And
Yes.
it works. It definitely works. I probably wouldn't have any owner of a recruitment agency that would pay me ever again if I didn't say that it was very
That's right.
important.
Yeah. Everybody
But
work less,
that's
and
right.
we're all
Yeah.
good. I'm going to teach you how to do it with less work.
But the other two is just as important. And I like that in recruitment, there is no other role where you are 100% accountable for your own success.
Definitely.
Other than being in small business
Yeah.
or in
Yeah.
your own business. Yeah.
So true. Love it. Love it.
Mm.
And I want to chat about outsourcing and buying back your time in a way. There's a fantastic book by Dan Martell. Everybody knows it probably by now, called Buy Back Your Time. It's worth checking out. But
Mhm.
he's always going on about outsourcing the tasks that aren't giving you your highest rate. Like don't do the lower level stuff when you should be doing the other stuff. But
Yeah.
these days you've also got so many tools, as you mentioned earlier. And I've used a lot of them as well, which are fantastic. So where's the line where you say, I don't need to actually hire a person. I'll use a tool. And this is what I'm going to outsource as opposed to that.
I would start before I even get to the how am I going to outsource it? Is what am I going to outsource?
Yeah.
A good way to flip it is what's the part where I add the most value? Another client of mine that I'm working with, we identified that the really important part for them is from when a customer is almost at the point where they're ready to make a decision through to onboarding of that customer, and
Yep.
they're the parts where all the value comes for
Yes.
for him. He's great at closing the deals, great at making sure that when somebody starts that they feel loved and that they get set up well, they're working well,
Yeah.
right? But he's out there doing the website rebuilds.
Yes, exactly.
Just like, dude, come on, like,
Yep.
how good are you at doing a website
Yep.
rebuild?
That's right. And what's that worth? Like what's the value of doing the website compared to closing a deal?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, and look at it an hourly rate of,
Yeah.
the return on that investment. So,
So,
the first thing is about, identifying where's the real value of what you offer in the business.
yeah.
and trying to figure that out. I very much am doing that with myself. So, I have an offer, or we've got 2 offers really. One that I essentially coach people to set up all these systems themselves, and then I have another offer where we do it for you. It's more expensive, obviously, and
Yeah.
I have a team of people. I've got 6 people that do a lot of that. I know that I'm really good at the strategic part of it, and I'm good at working on the coaching side of it. They're the parts that are really good for me, and so I'm trying to build that my business where that's what I focus on. I'm either helping in the development of the strategy or almost leading the growth process in their business for them. And whether that's a solopreneur or a business with 40 or 50 staff,
Yep.
and often in a slightly larger business, I might even stop working with the founder and start working more with their people. So I've identified what it is. So in my business, then I look at, okay, well, what can I then outsource? What do I need to outsource, and what do I need to be able to? What can I use a tool to be able to do?
Yeah.
I will often start with outsourcing because I find that it's easier to work with people who have experience and expertise in a specific area. Hopefully, I try and find people who are better than I am in that area. It's not always very hard. I will start with that, and then I'm figuring out what's the best value that they offer in that specific area. I'll give you an example actually. So I use a copywriter to help us with creating email sequences
Right.
for businesses. He also helps out a bit with doing some copywriting for case studies.
Right.
So he's great. He's very effective. As we can all know, pretty tough industry to be in at the moment, copywriting.
Hey.
A lot of people just going straight over to AI. I really want to be able to work with him to be able to help me create the system that's going to be most effective. And I believe that part of that will be human and part of it will be AI.
Yeah.
But I start with him doing everything. So
Interesting.
I go right from the start, okay, how do we build a case study for a client? How do we figure out what do we need from their clients? We need to get some quotes, some comments from their customers about what they've done for them. We need to probably interview the owner of the business about this particular project that they did or whatever it is. We need to structure it in a certain way. And then I work with him once we've done a few and we've developed what good looks like. We then step back and go, okay, well, how do we scale this? How do we do more of it?
Where can you take him out of the equation and use a tool instead?
Yeah, and that's not taking him completely out of the
Yep.
equation either. I
Just
see he's always
partly. Yeah.
going to have a role, even if it's just managing the system.
Mm.
I want somebody who's really good at copy to manage the system. So that's the way that I would structure it: is figure out what good looks like, figure out what you really want a human to be involved in and where are the parts, even if it's just quality assurance, whatever it is, and then build the system out from there. And so that's when the tool comes in, and whether that's AI or it's a purpose-built tool
Yeah.
or that type of thing.
What are your thoughts these days on the amount of tools that are around? And it's so easy to just get absolutely bamboozled with all these different tools and you don't know where to start.
I love a tool. Like, I get really, I can be, it's
Like
that
a kid in
the
a
shiny
candy store.
it's the shiny thing effect again, where I'm like, "Oh, I wanna use that,"
Oh,
and I think it's actually quite fortunate that I have the business that I'm in because it is a little bit of an excuse to go out
yeah.
and
I'm
test tools
testing this. Yeah.
and make sure that I'm across everything. What I would counsel though is most of the time it's more of a distraction
Yeah.
than it is a help. Almost most tools that are out there, we need probably 3 or 4 really good tools in our business that cover off
Right.
a lot. So it's generally something along the lines of a CRM, a
Yep.
communication tool, potentially a marketing automation tool if the
Yep.
CRM doesn't do it, and a project management tool. And then everything else is either an add-on or but if you've got an ecosystem that's doing 80-90% of the kind of tasks that are generally a part of your business, then maybe you can play a little bit with some other ones. But I've definitely gone down some rabbit holes with some tools that cost me a lot more money than they would have made me. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
So
So,
true.
and especially because it's so easy to be able to build a tool now. I mean,
Yep.
my kids could go and build a tool in 3 hours
Wow.
that you wouldn't, a developer would have taken 6 months to build 2, 3 years ago, you can go on to Lovable. You just say, "This is
Yeah.
what I want it to do, and I want it to be SaaS. Set up a payment system for me." Go into Claude Code now and, have it build out exactly what you want.
It's incredible. It's
It's
actually
it is, it's scary times as well. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's yeah.
And it kind of brings us to a good point is obviously you're always been big on training and
Mhm.
self-development and self-learning.
Yep.
So where should the entrepreneur and business person dedicate training and learning and self-development, and how much should they develop or
Mm.
dedicate? Because it's so important.
It is. I think it's crucial. I'll tell you what I do because this is just for me what has worked really well. And I think so. My rhythm, like I like to consume content, and the main ways that I consume content is YouTube,
Yep.
audio books,
Yeah, me too.
and podcasts.
Yeah, exactly the same.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I just find like information now is the cheapest it's ever been. We have so many different ways to be able to consume it. If we want to be able to improve ourselves, it just becomes about finding a format that really works for you.
Yeah.
So we see like a lot of talk about how much trouble universities are apparently
Yeah.
having now with like because access to information is now completely free. I can talk for a long time about the whole university thing as well. Actually, huge opportunity for universities at the
Yeah.
moment because we need community more than we've ever needed. I didn't learn anything when I was at uni, but I was really good with community.
I love it.
But I'll leave that there. So just in terms of how people need to, so I think finding the people that can stretch your understanding of topics,
Mm.
trying to be careful that you don't get into an echo chamber as well, like
Yes.
you mentioned like Alex Hormozy before, like I love his
So do
content.
I.
He's got great, but I don't want to be a super fan of any
Yes.
one kind of
Good
piece of
point.
advice. So I try to really vary it up. Just sidetrack on this, but same sort of concept. When I went to South by Southwest last year, which was the last one they were ever doing in Sydney. I'm not actually that surprised. I think they had a real identity crisis.
Right.
I wasn't quite sure what they were doing, but I just had to stop going to any talks with AI in the name
Right.
because I was just so over it, and that was the
Yeah.
same stuff, and it was even old news. A lot of it that was coming up because I mean, anything older than a month is old
That's
in
right.
that space. And I was just so sick of it, and I was like, "I'm gonna go to something different." And I went to actually, it was they had a whole stream on podcasting.
Ah, beautiful.
And I don't wanna be a podcast host. I like being a guest on a podcast. It's not one of my strategies, but I was like, "I'm just gonna go and see what they talk about." And actually, I was taking away something about branding, for example,
Exactly.
and then I was like, "I'm gonna go to another one." I went into and I took something else away from that. And so the learning is all around. There's so many ways that we can get it. And I think trying to get a really good variety of learning is a really good way to be able to do that. So vary up the podcasts that you listen to, trying to find writers. I always ask for recommendations from anyone that I'm speaking to that I know consumes a lot of content because
Yeah.
there's so much out there, and it's good to get that variety too.
Yeah. And you touched on kind of an interesting point, which has two sides to it. And I agree with you. Like, I think I've always been a big fan of learning and being exposed to as many different styles, avenues, industries, ways of working as possible, and drawing from whatever I can from those to adapt in my own way of working. Could be a totally different industry.
Yep.
And I think that's really powerful because we tend to get so pigeonholed in what our industry has always done, and
Yep.
that's just how it's done, and we don't change it. Whereas
Yep.
if you bring something fresh, people will only be too happy and say, "Wow, this is fantastic,"
Yeah.
and it's good for you. And at the same
Absolutely.
time, the other side of the coin is sometimes there's lots of this stuff to listen to, but it is important to seek out something that's really specific if it's a training and development exercise that's really gonna benefit you in your particular niche or industry itself, because you
Yep.
kinda need a bit of both. But
Yep.
But I agree, like, you need the industry-specific stuff, but you also need the breadth.
Have you done a course in something in the last 12 months or, would you like, could you, anything you can identify that you've
Yeah,
like
yeah, so I'll
invested
give
in?
I'll give someone a great plug. So there's
Yeah,
a great, guy in the recruitment industry, his name's
yeah,
Ez Khan.
yeah.
You don't know if you heard of him. He's in
But
Melbourne,
yep, yep,
and
yep,
he's, built a fantastic recruitment training body of work that he does usually like one-on-one
yep,
and one to many in person, but he's now recorded it all, and you can actually just buy a subscription, and
yep.
there's about 60 or so different modules of things to listen to and
Great,
learn. And
great.
really specific to the recruitment industry, but still
Yep,
broad enough
yeah,
from, I don't know, reverse marketing a candidate to
yeah,
talking to a client to
yeah.
learning about your metric, like all the different aspects of recruitment.
And
And so I've
and
signed
uh,
up, and I think it's
and
fantastic.
and how many years have you been in recruitment for?
And I've been in recruitment for 25 years,
Yeah,
and
and
I'm still
so
finding this valuable.
yeah, absolutely. It's the most common question I used to get when I was doing training. I'm actually in Melbourne for some training at the moment for
Right.
a client. I don't normally do it anymore, but I'm doing a job with my brother, and this opportunity came up for us to work together, and so
Nice.
mostly I just wanted to work with him. But one of the common questions that I get in training is, "We've got some really experienced people. Do they have to come to the training?"
Exactly.
And I always answer it the same way,
Absolutely, they do.
which is, yeah, it's absolutely they do, and partly it helps everybody else in the room
Yep.
that they've got seasoned professional in there to be able to share some of the best practices and that
Yep.
sort of thing. Always good to stroke the ego a little bit if they're there in the room,
Yeah.
um, but the other thing is like we all get into bad habits or just habits even, not necessarily even bad. We just get a way of doing things and we repeat it and we repeat it and repeat it. And so often they're the ones that turn around and go, "Do you know what? Like, I actually have been doing this way for so long, and I haven't really considered that I could improve it by doing it this way."
Absolutely.
And the other thing is often they're the ones where all the revenue sits.
Yep.
And so if you can get 10% improvement out of somebody who's already billing $1 million,
Yeah, so
get an
true.
extra 100K out of it compared to somebody who's billing 300, and you're only gonna get 30K out of it. So the opportunity to be able to grow is actually bigger.
Yeah, so true. And I just love being exposed to as much as I can.
Yeah,
And, being that there's so much volume of content out there, you don't always get to really
yeah,
focus 100% on everything, but
yeah.
just continually being exposed to it because you just never know what you're gonna pick up. But the other thing, as you say, you've got to implement it. You can't just learn it and then forget about it. You've got to put it into practice.
I'm just realizing now that, I mentioned before, you look at any really good company that's made it out of the stratosphere and into space.
Yep.
Yes, they had an owner who was, insatiable about their attitude to growth. But I would say the other thing is they consume a huge amount of content and knowledge, and they do not assume at any stage that they
Yep.
know everything. They're always looking to grow. Look at all the best business leaders, and
Definitely.
they all talk about how many books they read, about how
Yep.
many business books, how many strategy books, how many autobiographies, or anything that's going to be able to give some light and perspective on how you might do something
Yeah.
more effectively.
Because there's always so many people ahead of you on the journey, whatever journey you're on. There's always
Yeah.
way ahead of you. People, Jeff Bezos might think about Elon Musk or whatever. There's always someone ahead of you.
Someone's someone's done it before, and
Yeah,
especially in this world right now, they've probably done a reel about it, so
absolutely. So there you go.
something between a reel and a book.
Love it. But I want to just lastly touch on basic structure of scaling in a way, if there is such a thing. I know that it's hard to put into practice and hard to
Yeah,
quantify, but is there a particular framework that you need to put in place in a logical sense to be able to scale? Is there a recipe or some kind of architecture that's needed?
yeah. So we break everything into 4 pillars,
Right.
and so we have the 4 pillars that you need to get working both independently and, together, and so the first is strategy.
Yep.
And so that goes back, well, I've already spoken a bit about it, so I won't go too much into it, but certainly making sure that we've got the right ICP, the right message, we understand the problems we solve, we understand the channels that we have to be able to get
Yes.
to them, all that type of thing. The second is about processes.
Mm.
So processes can be, technical processes, it can be human processes. I often like talking about it as habits. What are your
Yeah, I like
habits?
that. Yeah, I like
Yep.
that.
And so making sure that we have the right habits, the right rhythms set up in order to be able to execute on that strategy. Then we have people.
Yep.
So have I got the right people? And even if you're a solopreneur, that still is relevant to you, whether we're talking about contractors that you use or whether you're talking about yourself. Am I the right person to be doing this? And if I'm not, is there somebody else, or can I become the right person?
Yep.
What we were just talking about by growing. And then the fourth pillar is tech and AI.
Mhm.
And so, do I have technology that supports what I'm doing across the other three? So, and that's often the way that I'll draw it out is I'll have the strategy and I always start with those two. Then we've got process and people. And
Right.
then underneath all of it is tech and AI, because the tech and AI should be driving all of those things.
Yep.
So that's the framework that we use to be able to grow. I'm sure there's lots of different ones that are out there. That's essentially how I've scaled businesses myself.
Yep.
And I've got a good success rate of doing it with other clients now in this business. So, yeah, that's the framework we use.
Yep. I love it.
Yeah.
Makes perfect
Um,
sense. I mean, I'm
mm.
sure that many others will all still mold into the same 4 categories in some way.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. Well,
I
everyone's
mean,
got a framework.
yeah. I mean,
That is
how many other things are there really?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I try not to talk too much about frameworks and that because, like, I just find them a bit boring and a bit done and all of that. But
Yep.
but the reality is, like, we need some sort of way to be able to, A, communicate what we're doing, and B, try and keep us in a going in a certain direction,
Yeah.
and because that's the biggest problem, and especially for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially, is just where we want to do everything, we want to be everything to everyone, but if we've got those kind of four pillars and we're pushing in a direction on each of them, then we're much more likely to get to the destination that we're trying to get to.
And do you find that entrepreneurs embrace change or resist change a lot? Or a bit of
I
both?
find they embrace it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think they're the most
Yeah.
okay out of any type of business role that you can get.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we think about stereotypes of people who don't embrace change, some slower moving industries and maybe some areas of government maybe,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
there's I think you've got to write down that end entrepreneurs. I mean, and I just love entrepreneurs and entrepreneurialism and small business owners. And I always have when I was back at school as a teenager, I loved the idea of having a business. I loved listening to what other people did with their businesses. I think it's brave that people do it, silly sometimes,
Yeah.
maniacal with others, but I feel super lucky that I'm in the position that I'm at now and that I get to work with other businesses
Yeah.
doing. Mm,
Amazing. Well,
mm.
mate, tell us a bit more about your business and how people can find you, work with you. Is there any way that you work in particular?
Yeah, yeah. I'm fairly specific with what I do because I've developed a way of doing it that is going to allow me to help the most number of people that I can.
Right.
And that's from everything from a cost structure through to the rhythm that I work. I generally work with businesses that, as I said before, have already been in business for a couple of years. I do have some startups on my books, but I don't necessarily go after those types of businesses. The businesses generally, the signs that I'm looking for are that they've grown over a couple of years, or it could be even some of them. Actually, I've got one client that's down here in Melbourne, and they've been going for 17 years,
Wow.
and their growth slowed during COVID,
Yeah.
and now they wanted to ramp it back up and get it back up to what it used to be, but without all the staff that they used to have as well. They had a very big business before. They are bringing on more staff, but they don't want to get it to the sort of scale and the headache that it was at before. So I'm looking for businesses that have generally grown and then stalled a little bit, and that's where I find I can have the most value. The solution that I offer is I start everybody with a workshop. So it doesn't matter what business it is. We do a 3-hour half day style workshop.
Love it.
That is to identify where are the bottlenecks, what's stopping growth from happening, and then what are the biggest opportunities for growth that they've got. And they generally fall into those four pillars: the strategy, the tech and AI, the people, or the processes.
Right.
And then I develop 3 documents for them. Out of the back of that, we do a 12-month roadmap, a 90-day plan, and then a 30-day task list.
Right.
So that we're breaking down from big, like where do we want to get to? What is a bit more detailed version of that? And everybody gets each month a 30-day task list, just saying these are the things that need to happen. So as I mentioned, I've got 2 streams that I work with after that. One is we do it for you or we do it with you, and the other one is I show you how to do it. Mostly I work with companies in that I show you how to do it. It's really cost effective for them to be able to take that on. I spend an hour with them each month to be able to look at what happened in the month before, assign what's going to happen in the months ahead. I use AI in everything that I do, but then I always humanize everything that I do. So I've got my own systems that run all through my business now so that I pretty much just do those calls, and it takes everything from those 3 documents that I mentioned before. It takes the transcript from whatever conversation I just have. It delivers it in a format so that they know what to do next month, and that when I can share it with them, we can tick things off together, all that sort of thing. So I do that, but really it's the outcome that we're trying to generate there is to give them more confidence, make them feel that they ticking the boxes that they need to be able to get to the growth targets that they're looking to get to, and the support to be able to do that, and the knowledge and experience that I've had to be able to share with them along the way. And then the second option that I have is a more expensive option, which is more we do it for you. I've got about half a dozen people that I work with on this basis, and that uses all my team. So I've got a copywriter, we've got automation specialists, we've got a developer, we've got a project manager, and a few other guys that do some specific things. So people can find my website at www.thegrowthengine.com.au,
Beautiful.
and I'm Cam at thegrowthengine.com.au. There's some nice tools on there that you can use. I've got a great quiz on the website that anyone can take to be able to figure out what's the main bottleneck that's slowing them up in their business. And I have a webinar that I run every month. The next one's coming up in about mid-April.
Right.
That looks at how do we get some growth strategies. I try to give away as much value as I can for free. And then if people align with me and they want to work with me, then they can. So and I'm a big believer in that model as well of give and it comes back as well.
Yes,
So
I agree.
yeah, that's how they get in touch with me. I onboard 3 clients a month. That's about the right volume for me. I am booked out for April, but open for May. So
Amazing. All right. Fantastic. Well, there you have it. Cam
yep,
from The Growth Engine. Absolutely fantastic. I had a really great conversation. I've learnt a lot. We've been able to dive into all sorts of great stuff. And obviously, Cam knows his stuff. He's been around many industries, run his own businesses, scaled his own businesses. So he knows just what it takes. So if anybody's out there looking to get to the next step, definitely reach out to Cam and book a call. And I'm sure that he'd be only too happy to talk to you. Are you happy to talk to any industry? Doesn't matter?
it's mostly B2B though, I would
Okay.
say. We do work with a little bit with a couple of consumer companies. It's probably the B2B is where, it's especially because of my background, I just find it's easier for me to see the problems really easily that exist there.
Love it. Well, Cam, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yep.
Always a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Daz.
I always like to leave my guest with a last word. Have you got any last thoughts or
For anyone that's thinking about going out on their own and they're just not sure, like if it's a move they should make sure that you really are 100% bought in. Take the steps that you can to be able to have some sort of insurance there. You know, if you can start a business while you're still in somebody else's business, that
good
type of thing
point?
fits really well.
Side
Um,
hustles are great that you can grow slowly.
Yeah, that type of thing. So yeah, and a bit off topic from what we're talking about today, but I do just love entrepreneurialism, and I think that the world will be a better place with more entrepreneurs in it. So
Love it.
I feel like that we offer better solutions than big businesses can. Not because businesses aren't trying or aren't good at it. They just can't move fast enough.
Exactly. We're just agile. We're
That's
agile,
yeah,
and we're hungry.
yeah. And you look at a lot of the good stuff that comes out of this world, it comes from small businesses. So,
Yeah.
go for it, but step into it with some sense and don't give up. The biggest determinant of success in small business is time. It's the amount
Very good point.
we do all this stuff. We try very hard to be able to speed things up, make them, optimize them, do all of that. The
Yeah.
main thing is sticking it out.
Yeah,
And
I 100% agree, and that goes with anything. It goes with employees as well as, entrepreneurs. You
yeah,
need time to really understand what you're doing, to understand the subtleties of what you're doing, to learn how to do them better, work out what's meshing with you and what's not.
yeah.
You need time. You
But
can't do things
to build a
overnight.
reputation,
Yep,
to build a
branding,
brand.
everything. Time,
That.
time, time, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good point. Well, there you go. Thank you so much, Cam.
Cheers, Daz,
Uh,
and, yep, I love talking to you, and, have a,
absolute pleasure.
great weekend.
Definitely. We'll see you next time, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast. If you'd like to join me as a guest on the show, I would be delighted to collaborate. Feel free to buzz me on 0414 659 800 or email me on darren@saulrecruitment.com.au. I'm always on the lookout for great guests who can share their stories and expertise with my community. But for now, though, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time.